morning all. This video is intended to cover sexual abuse. This particular topic is very vast and exhaustive in itself, but then I am restricting it to what your textbook has covered and with a little bit of additional information. So let's move on into the presentation. Okay, we'll start with the meaning of what sexual abuse means. Sexual abuse is a sexual contact that involves physical or psychological coercion, or at least one individual who cannot reasonably consent to the contact, for example, a child. Such abuse includes pedophilia, incest, and rape. So we have already covered pedophilia. In this video, I'll be covering the causal factors and the important consequences and concerns relating to sexual abuse, and we'll be looking at incest and rape a little later. Okay, so childhood sexual abuse, you all know that it involves sexual contact between an adult and a child, and the child is used for sexual purposes. Most of the time, the perpetrator is somebody who is known to the child. It could be a family member, an acquaintance, or an uncle, or somebody the child knows, and these people seem to be involving in something called a sexual grooming. That is, these people try to present gifts to children, or try to take these children out for a ride, and that way they increase the trust that the child has on them, and then later use these children for sexual purposes. Sometimes such abuse can also be couched in the form of love, and it could and the minor may even give a consent to a sexual relationship, but then we should understand that the child is developmentally not mature, either physically or psychologically, for a sexual act. However, the increased incidence of childhood sexual abuse, both worldwide as well as in India, makes it very important that we understand its causes. And childhood sexual abuse has also been studied extensively because we tend to see that there is a link between childhood sexual abuse and adult psychopathology. That is, people who have been abused as a child report a wide variety of symptoms as adults, starting from depression, anxiety, anger, and all of that, and even go on to develop certain mental disorders like somatization, dissociative disorders, personality disorders, and stress related disorders. So since childhood sexual abuse has been in the etiology of the development of these disorders, a lot of research has spurred in the area of childhood sexual abuse. The other thing is that there has been a number of dramatic and well publicized cases of childhood sexual abuse and how that has impacted the child later. And your book particularly talks about two cases, which we will be looking at the later section of this presentation. And they have questioned certain controversies concerning childhood sexual abuse, one of which is the validity of the children's testimony. The other is the accuracy of the recovered memories of childhood sexual abuse. So we'll be looking at that in detail later. Globally, the prevalence of childhood sexual abuse is quite alarming. Data from 22 countries shows that 7.9% of men and 19.7% of women had suffered sexual abuse prior to age 18. So in any prevalence study, two things become very important. One thing is to understand what is the age group of these participants who were included in the study. This particular data shows that these were taken from all people who prior to age 18, but you all know that 18 is reasonably not childhood, and therefore we don't know whether it really reflects childhood sexual abuse or it could it extends beyond that. The other thing is it also depends on how the study has operationally defined childhood sexual abuse, whether it involves penetrative sex, or whether it just involves perversive acts such as exhibitionism and voyeurism and all of that. So these two things will determine what kind of data we get from these childhood sexual abuse studies. The highest rates globally were reported from African countries, and the lowest was from Europe, and the US figures were intermediate. In India, though we call us a very sexually conservative country, an Asian Center for Human Rights states that about 48,388 cases were recorded in the country between 2001 and 11. That is, there was an increase, 336% increase in rape cases over this time period. And one study by Chalk and Cott in 2015 found that out of 702 adolescents, 31.3 faced moderate to severe sexual abuse, while 52 faced minimal sexual abuse, and 57.4% of boys and 34.7% of girls reported that they face sexual abuse by their near and dear ones. So here again we need to understand that boys are also abused, and contrary to a belief that it is only the girls who are victims of childhood sexual abuse. Okay, as I told you, the consequences of childhood sexual abuse are varied, and many people report a wide variety of symptoms. Short-term consequences include post-traumatic stress disorder, sexual inappropriateness in which the child may be seen talking about sexual acts, or the child may be involved in touching somebody else's genitalia and all of that. Poor self-esteem is also one of the short-term consequences. 1/3 of sexually abused children, however, showed no symptoms at all, according to one study done by Kennel and Tackett in 1993. As I told you, association between reports of childhood sexual abuse and adult psychopathology has also been commonly reported, and a wide variety of sexual symptoms have been alleged to result from early sexual abuse. That is, these as adults, they either become very averse to sex, that is, they cannot normally adjust to a heterosexual relationship, or it may manifest itself as sexual promiscuity. Okay, so these are the two main controversies concerning childhood sexual abuse. One is the extent to which we can test children's accusation to sentence someone of abuse. So your book talks about a particular case. The most notorious case was of McMartin preschool case in California, in which a particular parent named Judy Johnson complained to the police that her son had been molested by Raymond Bucky, who actually ran the preschool which her son attended. And Johnson's complaint grew increasingly bizarre, and she said that Bucky had actually had anal sex with her son while he stuck the boy's head into the toilet and making him ride naked on the horse. After her complaint, many such children were also complaining and giving such satanic reports of abuse. Johnson was, however, later diagnosed, that is, the parent of that person was later diagnosed with acute paranoid schizophrenia, and she died of alcohol related liver disease. So this case was a very interesting case. The jury acquitted Mr. Bucky on all counts and failed to convict Raymond Bucky on any way. However, he was freed only after a retrial after having spent 5 years in jail. The jurors' principal reason for not finding the defendant guilty was their concern that interviewers had used leading questions or coercive methods of questioning. So, therefore, in a series of studies, Stephen and Ceci and Maggie Broke have shown that children can be easily led to construct or concoct stories of events that never occurred. So, if you are the leading researcher or the interviewer who is asking children of their accounts of abuse, if your interviewing questions have very leading questions, and questions have been repeated, and certain kind of answers have been reinforced, then there is quite possible that the children can report something that has never occurred, and this has led to a lot of false accusations and injustice. So from this particular case, we do understand that children's memory, see, we all know that every time we try to recall something, we confabulate. That is, we don't really have the real instance in our mind. So we only get a true essence of the experience and we recall. So the recalled version is not closer to the original version. Now these children are made to believe that something has happened to them, and therefore when they have recalled, they have also recalled very or they have rather given answers that the interviewer would like to listen to. The next most important controversy concerning sexual abuse is whether sexual abuse which was supposedly to have been repressed can be recovered during psychotherapy. Can traumatic experiences be truly forgotten and recovered intact years later? So here again in 1990, a young woman named Eileen Franklin testified in court that she had seen her father rape and murder an 8-year-old playmate 20 years earlier. Remarkably, despite her claim to have witnessed the murder, she had no memory of the event until she recovered the memory by accident in adulthood. So Franklin's father was convicted and given a life sentence, although in 1995 the conviction was overturned because of two serious constitutional errors. In a different kind of a case, Patricia Burgess sued her psychiatrist in Chicago for false memory implantation, claiming the doctors had persuaded her through hypnosis and other therapeutic techniques to believe that she was a member of a satanic cult and that she was sexually abused by multiple men, and that she engaged in cannibalism and abused her children. And in that particular case, Patricia was awarded a $10.6 million. So again, a lot of debate. These controversies still remain a very unresolved issue, and but however, researchers have pointed out that there is absolutely no evidence that something that is repressed could later be recovered, say after 10 years or 20 years and all of that. Even normal unrepressed memories can be highly inaccurate, and false memories can be induced experimentally is what people have said. So while all this debate continues as to whether to what extent can be take the validity of a recovered memory and all of that, one thing that is very profound is that such accusations peaked only in 1991 and 92, with about 579 complaints made during that particular time. However, in 1999 and 2000, only 36 accusations were made, showing that such claims of having recovered memories of childhood sexual abuse has come down. So that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you.